Today we're going to be talking about St. Ignatius's Examen prayer. It's a prayer that's used to help one examine your life, to see how you're doing, to reflect upon your actions and the things that happen, the circumstances that happen to you that day. St. Ignatius did it twice a day, but most people only do it once a day. At the end of the day or the beginning of the next day, they reflect on the day that just took place. And just like it says, you're examining your prayer life. You're examining your life altogether in the Examen prayer. So St. Ignatius, he said this daily examen is a technique, a prayerful technique that helps one to reflect on the day's events in order to detect God's presence in your life and to discern his direction for us. The Examen is an ancient practice in the church that can help us see God's hand at work in our daily experience. So the Examen is to help us not just to reflect on our life, but to open ourselves up to God, to help us to see more clearly areas where we can change, areas where we can grow and develop. And this method presented here is adapted from a technique described by St. Ignatius in his spiritual exercises. And St. Ignatius thought this examen was a gift that came directly from God because God wanted him to share it with others. To how do you know what God is saying to you? Unless you reflect and prayerfully reflect and ponder what God has said to you. So if you're deciding next year, like which sport I should join, or which club I'd like to be participating in, or should I do this or do that, St. Ignatius would say, well, you take the pros and cons of each and write them out, but then reflect on throughout the day. You know, did you have a desire to be a part of that group throughout the day? Or did you desire to do this? And he's saying, when you go through your whole day, sometimes you can see little insights, little lights that can help you, guide you towards your deep inner desire. And that's God speaking through your desires, speaking through your attractions or your motivations. And that's what the examen's all about, to become aware of your life, to be aware of the movements within your life, the movements of desire, of attraction, or dislike. So to begin with, every day, all of us, we have our day to ponder, our day to look upon and reflect on, and it's a good thing to do. Sometimes in the quiet moments after dinner, after a long day at school, to sort through things that took place, to help you understand or what you'd like to do better the next day. And that's what the examen is all about, to reflect upon our life and areas where we could grow deeper and closer to God, and to grow clearer in understanding what we should do. So step one, you always should begin in prayer is just taking a quiet moment and to still your mind and just in the space of an Our Father, just imagine that our Father's looking down upon you, smiling, that he's happy that you are coming into his presence and wanting to pray to him, wanting to look upon and examine your day with him, helping you to look at it in a different way by asking him questions about certain things, or by your gratitude for the things that took place, or by the disturbance or difficulties that you had. You can bring them to him in this prayer and to help you sort through them, to ponder them and to ask him, what is the root of this problem, or why does this keep happening? So that's step one. Just come into the presence of God and remember that he is happy that you are with him, to look over this day that you just lived with him. Step two is to review your whole day with a sense of gratitude, to thank God for all the things that happened that day. the relationships, the fun laughs you had with your friends, the good food at lunch or dinner, and all the blessings that you enjoyed in class or in sports or in a club. Just to thank God, to look over the whole day and to be aware, point by point. God wants you to be grateful. And when you have a grateful heart, it helps you to be more thankful, more joyful, because you remember all the good things that took place today. And find 2 or 3 things that you are especially grateful for that day and just hold on to them for a moment. Because in step 3, we are going to scan the whole day again. And this day, or I should say this step, we are going to take the strong and positive emotions, the big ones, 2 or 3 of strong positive, 2 or 3 strong negatives, and just bring them out, write them out. Sometimes it's good because it makes it more concrete, makes it more real when you really put it down on paper and just keeping it up in your mind. So when I do the Examen, I like to do it on paper. I know a lot of people don't, but for me, it just makes it more real. And sometimes you can say more with a pencil than just up in your mind. You're more easier, can relate and think of and put things down. But for your homework, I'm glad you're doing it with a pencil and paper, because then you can write out 2 or 3 big positive things that happen, and 2 or 3, if you have 2 or 3 negative things. Sometimes you might only have 1. Sometimes you might not have really much of one at all. Well, put down whatever you can of positive and negative. And then after that, you go on to step 4, and I want you to choose one if you can. Sometimes you might choose 2, but usually choose one of these emotions that you experienced and spend a few minutes with it. Choose the emotion that seems to be the strongest, or the one that disturbs your peace the most. And just ponder the whole situation and ask God to be with you there at that moment. And you might want to ponder, why do you think you were so angry? Or your feelings were so hurt? Or you were so unhappy when that situation happened? And ask God, saying, why did that little situation make me so angry or so frustrated? And when you do that, sometimes, not always, sometimes you need to just to sit with it, but sometimes all of a sudden you might have an illumination why that little occurrence really bothered you so much. It might remind you of something before that's connecting these two together. That sometimes you might just think it's just one little sad moment, but actually it might be a couple coming together, from last week and another week, and they all come together. And that's where reflecting upon someone's life is very valuable in the spiritual life. And when you write it out, you might not get much thought. But when you write it out or think about it, you give it, you might say, kind of a concrete reality. It can help you to learn about yourself, maybe what makes you angry, what makes you sad, what disturbs you. And maybe you can say, well, next time I'm not going to do that. Or next time I'm not going to put myself into that situation. Or next time I might do something different to avoid that. Or whatever it may be. But you can learn something about yourself and or with God about yourself. Now, step 5 is when you make a commitment to some action based on what you just wrote down. Like I said, something like, I'm going to avoid that situation. Every time that I get in that situation, I lose my temper. Or I don't like going there because every time I do that, I'm always late for my next appointment or next certain thing or so on. But if nothing comes to mind, just write down your overall experience and keep a record of it. And what happens is you might notice after a couple weeks, you might come across the same emotion or the same feeling. And you start to see a connection of a pattern of habit of acting or doing something or not doing something that takes away your peace. And you say, I am going to do something concretely now, and I'm going to try to turn around that particular action I may have done or did not do. And the whole point of this prayer is just to reflect upon your life. A life not reflected upon is some people say is not a life worth living. So we should reflect upon our life. And St. Ignatius of Loyola, he said God gave this to him as a gift, to feel the promptings of the Spirit in his life, leading him and guiding him. And you will be surprised when you find God gives you an inspiration you never thought. Where'd that come from? Where'd that thought or that insight come from? That is God's speaking to you in prayer. For your homework assignment, I want all of you to write out the 5 steps of the Examen prayer. Choose one day. And again, like I said, you can do it after dinner, later after dinner, or you can do it the next day in the morning, looking back on the previous day. And write out each step and take your time and really think. And when you're finished, go to my CC and you will put that assignment on the assignments in my CC and you'll see it. And that will be due Thursday. Okay, gentlemen, it's been good teaching you this last quarter. I hope you all stay healthy and have a good summer. And I look forward to seeing all of you next year. And I'll probably be teaching some of you guys. So take care. God bless. I'll see you later.